Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this mundane Monday?
Yeah, Monday's right. My body hurts, my head hurts, my everything hurts. My faith in the Steelers is lacking. Quite frankly, that's fine. All my Atlanta this game was crazy. We're going to talk about it. We're going to briefly discuss it. And then James, we are going to get ready for an end of the year review on our next episode, because I almost don't even want to talk about this game, but we're going to because we should and because it matters. And so, James, before we go too far, how are you today?
Doing well, man. I'm doing well. Glad to be home with the dogs and talking a little Steelers football, even though it was a depressing end of the season.
Yeah, depressing is an understatement, to be quite clear. But yeah, let's talk about it. We're going to talk about a couple things before this. Pittsburgh Steelers did activate offensive tackle Calvin Anderson off of the IR to the 53, which was exactly why they released Scotty Miller. We discussed that last week. They did sign Scotty Miller back to the practice squad and elevated him, elevated Jamal Agnew, the wide receiver.
Both of them. Scotty.
Both of them. Okay, too. Scotty got elevated too. Okay.
Yeah.
So all those guys those two guys got elevated for game day. Inactives, James, do you want to go over that list?
Yeah, now here's where it's funny when you look at the guys that were elevated, because inactives were Kyle Allen, of course, the third string quarterback, Mason McCormick unable to go with that broken hand, Dean Lowry, Preston Smith, Corey Trice, which is frustrating because we really needed to see him. In a physical game, you want your most physical players, and he is drastically more physical than what you get out of Dante Jackson and even Cameron Sutton, in my opinion. Yep. And then the other two inactives were Scotty Miller and Jamal Agnew, so it was completely pointless to elevate them for game day. I understand that possibly the reason they did that was just kind of as an insurance policy, because it doesn't count against your payroll in the postseason, as to where when you elevate people during the regular season, you do have to pay them more for being on the active roster. So they didn't make any more by being elevated. It didn't cost the Steelers any more to do so, salary cap wise anymore. They might have made more money. But then if somebody gets hurt in the practice stretch line or something like that, then you can dress those guys instead of the other ones. So
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the receivers dealing with injuries that we've talked about in the past, specifically George and some of those guys. James, it's time to talk about the game, and I really don't even know where to start. Another abysmal start for a Steelers team. They were down 21-0 at halftime. Managed to put up 14 points in the third quarter, and then a goose egg again to finish out the game. James, I believe 2 first downs in the first half.
Sounds right.
To 19 by the Ravens. I mean, just pitiful effort, play calling, execution, you name it. Pittsburgh sucked at it in the first half.
Yeah. I think the most frustrating thing for me is that yourself and so many other people have been screaming for Pittsburgh to throw the ball on first down. They come out on the first play and call a great play, throw it to Pat Freiermuth on the sideline, and he just drops it.
Yep.
And the guy that has had the most dependable hands on the entire team all season long, on the last play of the game of the regular season, drops the ball. On the first play of the game of the postseason, drops the ball. And it's so uncharacteristic of him. I hope this doesn't get in his head. The rest of the game, he did have a good game.
Yep.
But it's such a momentum killer right out of the gate. You know, when your first play is a dropped ball, when there's room. Like, there was room in front of him. He probably could have got the first. If not, he would have at least had 8 or 9 on first down, which is a win in my book. And then the same thing happened to Darnell a couple of times, and the throws weren't perfect, but he had a tough time catching the ball in this game too.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was a concentrated effort in this game to use the middle of the field a little bit more and to get it to the tight ends, and then it just didn't go well.
Yep.
Whether it be dropping the ball or even in another situation, Pat Freiermuth only had to get like 2 yards. He catches the ball. Here comes like a 190-pound DB, and the DB stones him and keeps him short.
Yep.
Yeah, 98% of the time, Pat truck sticks that dude and is still running for 5, 10, 15 yards after that. And for whatever reason in this one, it's the worst combination of collision, and he goes down short of the first down.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, and a lot of this is just me ballparking due to the fact that I'm trying to guess what's happening. There's a lot of details you don't get as a fan, as someone who's just a watcher of the game. We're not in the meeting rooms, we're not in the locker rooms, we're not anything. This team was defeated before they got on the field. I don't think I've ever seen, especially the mannerisms and the way they held their bodies afterwards. Seeing TJ Watt's interview and how frustrated he was and saying everything's above his pay grade, about learning how the team's going to change or fix things. He said it's above his pay grade. George Pickens, when asked if he's seen growth and improvement, he says, yeah, from my rookie year, I've seen growth. And he's like, are you optimistic about there being more change in the future? And he says, no. Like, they know stuff that's happening in the locker room that makes them feel so depleted and so defeated because they've been doing the same ring around the rosy. Like, the atmosphere in that room is just so defeated. And I feel like we came out that way. And maybe it was from the first drive. Maybe it was from the first quarter. Maybe it was from the first half. But when you have Baltimore go out there and put up 21 points on you, and you're still doing the same things on offense that aren't working, then you come out and throw the ball in a phenomenal fashion to start the second half and put up 14 points pretty quickly, in all honesty. Unfortunately, the defense couldn't keep up and keep the Ravens out of the end zone. It makes me mad. And I know what you're going to say, James, like they came out and they did throw on first down and it was incomplete and all this other stuff. But we've seen consistently over the past few games, and I will also admit that, it's one thing when you're in a passing situation because the defense plays off ball a little bit more. We have more room. I will 100%, agree with that. But it's hard to see the other side of it when we don't do the other side. It's hard to see, if it's 0-0, we played the way we did coming out of the second in the second half. Could we have put up points like that or not? We don't know because we never start that way. We never do that. Pittsburgh's been outscored 73-0 in the last 6 playoff games, all under Coach Tomlin. And I think it's like 143-47 in the first half. Like,
yeah, and your 73-0 is the first quarter.
Oh yeah, first quarter,
yeah.
And the 143-47 in the first half. Like, at that point, the games are lost.
Yeah, you're too far behind. It's not that high octane of an offense, or at least it isn't at this stage in the season. It was at one point in this season. It was. We put up over 40 points against the Bengals. I know that's one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but still, it happened, and it was the same guys. So it's frustrating to watch. One of the things that is very evident to me is what we've seen like the last 3 or 4 weeks is a really, really unbalanced time of possession. And that's what goes on when you get so one-dimensional with your offense. Yep. If you can't have success running the football and you can't complete a high percentage of your passes, you're going to have drives that don't sustain and don't burn any clock. And then your defense is tired 24/7 because they're out there for 80, 90 plays a game instead of 50 or 60 like they're supposed to.
Yep.
So, over and over, we keep on seeing these drives from opponents that are going 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 plays, 17 plays, driving right down the field. There was one in this game, they had like 13 run plays.
In a row
and finished with a touchdown.
Yep.
Like, you can't come up with something to slow that down?
Nope.
Like, it's
and they run a high school style offense. They run a high school, like that is a high school option play. That is the option play that my high school ran. And you can't stop. Like, you can't figure this out. It's crazy. It's either the guys on the field or the plays we're doing and you figure out what it is you had all season. I realized, I mean, we played them 3 times and we didn't do super well any of the 3 times. The first time we did. Second time, not so much. Like, figure it out. It's the NFL, for heaven's sake. I mean, we're playing with grown men and grown coaching staff. Like, I know that we're gonna go there eventually, and we'll probably get there on the next episode as well. We'll talk about certain things. But I saw an interview where Mike Tomlin said he doesn't want to be the team that turns the ball over when talking about the Bengals game. And that's basically saying you don't want to throw the ball. You don't want to take a chance of an interception. And then on top of that, apparently I saw a quote from, I can't remember the guy's name now. He's like a Pittsburgh insider in Pittsburgh. But he talked about how Mike Tomlin has his hands in too many of the other teams, like special teams, defense, offense. He has his hands too involved. He needs to let the guys do their job because he's kind of controlling or micromanaging things. And I think it's too much for him. He needs to focus on head coaching and not focus on everything else.
I mean, that's kind of what head coaching is, though, is being involved in all the other aspects.
When you change the game plan or don't allow a coach to come up with a game plan on his own, or that's where I have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing isn't working. So let them try. I don't know. That's my opinion for now. You want to start talking numbers?
Sure, man. Yeah, that's one of the frustrating things here is that if you look at Russell Wilson's numbers, it looks really good.
Yeah.
20 of 29 for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That looks pretty solid. The 4 sacks is an issue.
Yep.
This is something that's always been an issue for Russell Wilson. It's always been an issue for Justin Fields. We knew it was going to be an issue with either one of these guys, no matter who it was starting. But getting sacked 4 times a game, every game like clockwork, is an issue, and a major one at that. I thought that it cleaned up a decent amount in the second half after Dan Moore was gone.
Yep.
And that's something that we're going to talk about just briefly, at least here, is that I don't know when he got injured, but when he didn't come back into the game. Calvin Anderson started at the left side after Dan was out, and I thought Calvin did an awesome job, honestly.
Yep.
I really hope that they bring him back. I can't imagine it will cost much. You can probably put him on a minimum salary 1-year deal, but it's a fantastic emergency plan for an offensive tackle. You were saying on a previous show that they should have somebody that's like an NFL journeyman that can start in multiple positions.
Yep.
I think Calvin Anderson is exactly the bill that you need going into next season with Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. If one of them is not handling their job well, Calvin Anderson can probably handle it for a while.
Yeah. And they already signed another offensive lineman to a futures contract. I just don't remember what his name was. I saw it pop up today and now I can't freaking find it. It was an offensive tackle, if I'm not mistaken, but you're right. The numbers look great for Russell. And again, if you look at the breakdown of the first half to the second half, it's drastically different.
Yeah.
And I wish I had that breakdown. I don't in front of me, but it is just pitiful to watch us go out there and putz around for 30 of the 60 minutes and put up 0 points, 2 first downs. The first drives we had all game, 6 plays, 19 yards, 3 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, 9 yards, 5 plays, 14 yards. And that was the end of the half. Like we had 4 drives, none of them lasting more than 6 plays, and none of them going more than 20 yards. And we've seen this so much that I don't understand why things haven't changed drastically. We've seen this so much that I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll get into it later. There's just a lot, but Russell did come out and have a better game. The 1 sack frustrated me because there was so much room to his right. If he had just tried to scramble instead of tried to not die, which
Was
that's
that
the down
on the flea flicker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought that he scrambled right into the sack on that one.
There was even another one that he had some running room, but again, that's what that's what you're gonna deal with a guy that's that small and can't see the field. Like his feet, like I know that people are probably not gonna agree with this statement. But I don't think you bring back Russell Wilson next year. I don't think you can afford to. we have seen the max that we can get from him. I think that Mike Tomlin, unfortunately, likes to run his stuff in a family-friendly, family-oriented fashion, which is all fine and dandy. But Russell Wilson adds to that. Russell Wilson's a family guy.
Oh
He's
yeah,
funny. He's down to earth. Like, they're great friends. That you are not here to make friends, Mike. I know that that's a plus, but you have to run an organization. You have to run a team and get them to a Super Bowl or at least a playoff win for once. He's
yeah.
the only coach in the Super Bowl era to have 8 years or more of winning seasons over 500 and 0 playoff wins to show for it. Only coach. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that we can talk about a little bit when we talk about, you talked about it, the injury with Dan Moore. TJ Watt also had that elbow injury this game. I don't know if he just hasn't been himself this whole time or what. He had 193 snaps, defensive snaps, without recording a single stat. That's crazy.
And that's something that, honestly, if people are trying to be objective about how they feel about how this season ended and this slide of games of losing so many in a row, if you're being objective, you better have just as much disdain for the performance from TJ Watt as you do from the coaching of Mike Tomlin.
I agree.
You're just not being fair otherwise.
No, I agree completely.
Better out of both of these guys. And the same thing for Pat Freiermuth. He's so dependable all season long, and then when the season's on the line, just not.
Yeah.
Just not. And is it missing a clutch gene? I don't know, but
I think it's all here.
Yeah.
After the way this, I think there's stuff going on in the locker room, or there's doubt that these guys are having that they're not talking about publicly, obviously. And I think it's gotten into a lot of their heads, quite frankly. I think after the 1-game skid, and I'm sure that at practice or somewhere along the line of a weekly meeting, they're expecting something to change, or maybe someone's even asking for change openly and outwardly. And I do not hate Mike Tomlin. I do not necessarily want to see him gone. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think he brings in good people. I think he is bad at whatever multitasking he's trying to do, because these are the examples that I've been so mad about in the past, like making changes to the offensive play calling, making changes. I've gone hard on Todd Haley about it. I went hard on Matt Canada about it. There was a guy before him that I went hard on about it, that I was like, we keep doing, and it's the same exact problems with a different coordinator. Mike Tomlin is starting to show the fact that he is the issue some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying he needs to be gone or anything like that, but I'm saying they got to fix it. They got to take something away from him, get him, like the same thing with the George Pickens thing. It's another AB, it's another Juju, it's another Chase Claypool being drama and antics outside of the game. And I think Mike has this heart of like, I want to bring this young man in and teach him and show him how to be a man and show him, like, at some point, get rid of the drama. I love George Pickens, and I hope that he doesn't turn into more drama than what he has been. But I feel like that's kind of what the role he's currently rolling into.
I think we got to get him better quarterback play.
100%.
And that's the big frustration for me through all this, is that, I understand, it's been 3-4 different offensive coordinators and a lot of the same issues. But through that time, we have had probably bottom third tier quarterback play, if not worse, the entire time. And it's been different dudes the whole time too.
Yep.
We haven't had a decent quarterback play in 6 or 7 years, because Ben wasn't good the last couple of years. He was injured.
No, I saw a thing too that people talked about, was hanging on to Ben for too long because of stuff. I saw a stat I wanted to share with you, and now I can't find it, of course.
Yeah, but that's the thing to me, is like, it's easy to say that Mike Tomlin's the problem because of the different offensive coordinators. But I would say Mike Tomlin ought to probably get a little bit of credit for winning with these absolutely god-awful quarterbacks over the years, with Duck Hodges, and they never even got the double-digit passing touchdowns with Kenny Pickett. And some of the other guys you trotted out there with Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky, and it's just been bad.
Would you say Pickett and Trubisky were worse than Wilson and Fields?
Yeah.
Okay, we were 10-7 with Pickett and Trubisky destroyed in the wildcard game. We were 10-7 with Wilson and Fields destroyed in the wild card game.
Yeah, I mean, we got one good quarter of quarterback play in this game, I feel.
Yeah,
one good quarter.
100%.
And it was the third quarter. He was great in that quarter, and then it kind of tailed off again near the end.
But I don't think he was necessarily bad in the first 2 quarters. We just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's my struggle.
And that's 100% true, is that, like, in this game, the tight ends who have been the most reliable are the ones that let them down. The wide receivers had a pretty good game, I thought, in this game. But you can't be messing around with, bring this quarterback in for that. I mean, Justin Fields came in on the one play, and he had a perfect pocket. And instead of staying in the pocket, he rolled right into where there were 2 guys completely unblocked and then threw it 20 yards out of bounds. Like, that's a 0 IQ play on his part. And he's 4 years into the league. That's not going to get any better. He got 6 games to try to prove it, and he just got worse as the season went along. And that was against the easiest part of the schedule, not the toughest part of the schedule like Russ had to go against. And I'm not saying that I think that Russ is the answer, because they need to do better than what Russ was this year. But it's not available in the draft either.
Well,
and it's not going to be available in free agency.
No, but that's where I think Pittsburgh needs to cut ties, part ways with Russ, show the team that you're not willing to just be okay with that. And like, I'm sorry, but there's no leadership that comes with Russell.
But what do you do then? I mean, you can't march Justin out there and think it's going to be any better. We've seen that it's worse.
You march Justin, you sign. I don't want to see this. I'm just saying it's an option. You sign Aaron Rodgers, you let him play a year. Like, I don't want to see that at all. But I just don't think you can bring Russ back, because that will destroy the team morale to have to go through this again of, we're going to have a couple good games. But then in reality, when teams play us well and we go up against the top teams in the NFL, we can't do diddly squat. We can't throw the ball. We can't run the ball. We can't do this. We can't do that. Like, once we had 2 drives of catching them off guard with passing the ball, and then they kind of figured it out. Unfortunately, the next drive started with a false start, a pass to Najee, an incomplete pass, and then we got a couple good plays, and then it just dwindled out with Russell Wilson getting sacked. That's going to be the norm with him. He can't see. Like, I'm not saying that to be funny or anything. The dude can't see downfield. He's a quarterback that can't see. He doesn't have we don't have the offensive line that he had in Seattle, where they figured out how to block for his mobility. He's not as mobile as he was in Seattle. Like, I don't think there's any point in bringing him back unless Mike Tomlin and just wants to have a buddy in the locker room again. Like, I'm sorry, but if that's the reason, that's crazy.
See, I think it's reasonable to expect that the offensive line play will be drastically better next year without Dan Moore, because he was so bad.
Yeah.
And I think Russ can play better behind an offensive line who's actually protecting him. I think he had no faith in that line, and that's a big part of the problem, because he got hit so many times. He was just running for his life, and he just didn't get a chance to go through his progressions. And honestly, I think they need to use shotgun a lot more, because then that takes away from the height issue by getting him back there so he can see it to start off with. And sure, the visibility is going to drop a little bit as the pressure starts coming forward towards him, but he won't be trying to read it as he's also going into his drop back. I think you got to get him out from underneath the center.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you there. We talked about numbers for about 5 seconds, then went on more rants, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's where we are in the season.
Yeah, that's you have no. James does have an idea. He got my text message during the game. I was not a happy camper. Najee Harris. Let's talk about the running backs real quick. Najee Harris, 6 carries for 17 yards. Jalen Warren, 2 for 6. Russell Wilson, 3 for 6. Whopping 11 carries in the game for 29 yards, a 2.6 average. Each of them being 5 yards their longest. Jalen's was 4. Well, that's disgusting. Not going to do anything.
Disgusting, yeah. Yep, nowhere near good enough. Not even close.
Nope. I don't even know what to say to that. I genuinely don't. Like, I don't even know how to process that.
There's not even like this guy was good and this guy sucked. Everybody sucked running the ball. Just
and so did the offensive line in front of them. There was no run blocking. There was barely pass blocking. And when there was, Russ didn't figure that out. Dan Moore obviously had one of the worst games we've seen in a long time. Thankfully, he got hurt. Don't mean that like in a way that I hope it's long term, but it was nice to get him out of there. It's sad that it had to be forced for that to happen when I feel like the past month of football probably could have justified a benching.
I think the problem was there was no one to put in because of Calvin Anderson.
And that's fair.
Yeah. I think otherwise they would have probably done something. Because, I'm with you. His play has warranted benching, but they were down to like fifth and sixth string offensive tackles, and those guys just unfortunately can't hold their own, and we already knew that.
Yeah. Receivers in this game, the kind of the lone highlight, quite frankly. George Pickens, 5 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. I don't think those numbers should be as glorified in this game as they were. I thought George had an average game, which 5 for 5 is an average game for George, in my opinion. I think he can do great. Like that should be. Let me clarify. I understand that that's not an average game for a receiver, but that should be an average game for George's talent. And it's unfortunate that he hasn't had the quarterback play, or quite frankly, sometimes I don't know what you want to call it, the energy or the motivation to run his routes on a field and stuff like that. Like put forth the effort. Sometimes he's off karate kicking people. I don't know. It's funny, but it's true.
He does some wild stuff on the field. But the thing I thought was most wild about his play in this one was that spin move that got him into the end zone.
Yeah, the spin move between two players.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. I thought for sure that safety was going to light him up, and it was going to be a 15-yard completion, and that's play over. But not the case. He just pulls a juke move out of his butt like he does so many times and finds his way into the end zone. And George, as I expected, had a very nice bounce-back game from his final regular season game with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
The question is, can he keep his head up knowing that there's probably going to be a lot of change from this season to next season? But what Pittsburgh will want is for him to be the consistent number one from last season to this season, to build around these young guys and try to get this to be the wide receiver core of the future. He's just got to keep his head on straight and not say anything stupid to reporters.
Yeah. Najee Harris, 3 catches for 41 yards. He caught the ball very well on 3 targets. Van Jefferson, 2 for 37 and a touchdown. Mike Williams, 1 for 37. Calvin Austin proving over and over again that I think he needs to be targeted more and not when he's triple covered.
No, that was bad.
But 1 for 25, and he took a pop on that one and held on.
He did, yeah.
Like that was what led to that touchdown drive. That I think that was our first touchdown drive too. Because I think the next pass went to Justin or Van Jefferson in the end zone. Jaylen Warren, 4 catches for 19 yards. Pat, 3 for 15. And Darnell, 1 for 9. Darnell's was early, and I was so excited because I felt like it was going to start happening. And it kind of did, don't get me wrong, but the one pass that was to him was from our own end zone, and Russell Wilson didn't have they highlighted it on the TV that his pocket presence and his footwork was just off. There was no power in the throw. He underthrew him. I'm with there. I mean, Darnell's what, 6'7", 6'8"?
6'7", yeah.
Yeah. He can't bend over and get those shoelace throws. Like he's not, that's not, I would never expect that from a guy that large, especially when he's trying to move his body downfield. But Darnell, 1 for 9. I thought everyone played well outside of Pat's drop early and Darnell missing a couple passes. I thought the pass game was on point when we were trying to do it and doing it well, and the pocket was there. Unfortunately, the sacks played a role in being able to throw the ball. And another thing that while we're on the offense, and then you can talk about the receivers a little bit more. I hated the fact that it was the 3rd drive, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was I hated the fact that we punted it on 4th and 1.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the Pat Freiermuth one where he got stopped like inches away and they didn't even think about going for it.
No. And we saw Baltimore go out and showed you how to run a play to get a yard.
Yeah.
If you're an NFL team and you can't get a yard, you shouldn't be an NFL team. Go play college.
But you just have to use different personnel from what you're using, you know?
Yep.
I mean, the thing is, like, when they did their tush push, they put their 265-pound tight end and quarterback, the 310-pound fullback pushing the pile, and the biggest, strongest running back in the NFL pushing the pile. So, of course, it worked. Like,
it's like I've been asking for that, James. It's like we've been asking for that.
Yeah, it's like we've been saying use the correct personnel and the play will work instead of trotting out a wide receiver and having him line up tight like he's a tight end.
If you're worried about the snap, put Justin Fields in there or keep excuse me, or keep
Cody's experiencing some technical difficulties right now, getting a little water. He's going to be just fine to get this opinion out, but I agree with him. You got to get the right people out there. You got to get some big boys. I don't care if you're using people from the defense on the offense in the goal line situation. You got to do something different.
If you put Darnell at fullback, he's picking up whoever's in front of him and pushing them across the line.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, if you're worried about the snap, I'd understand that. Like, oh, that player's never handled a snap before. Like, what if they fumble? Okay, keep Russell in there. But let Darnell just lift him up like freaking Mufasa and put him over. Yep. Like, it's just crazy. Not Mufasa.
Yeah, just march out two of your offensive linemen as tight ends, put Darnell in the backfield with Najee, and it's going to work 9 times out of 10.
But it's going to work 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's
like, didn't even change the personnel to try to do it.
No, because why would we change?
Maddening. Yeah.
And this is something I thought on the drive home as I'm like processing the fact that we have to record this stupid show tonight. The show is not stupid. I'm talking about this game is stupid. This is something I processed. I don't know where along the line of Tomlin's coaching career that he saw discourse, he saw discomfort, he saw what he's seeing right now. And whatever head coach he was around, maybe it was Tony Dungy, I don't know who he was under or whatever, but he saw them do something, and it was be calm, it was take courage in the moment, it was be a leader with your voice and your actions through that, and it worked. It was beautiful. They won games. They did really. This is not that situation. Like, I feel like he has to have like some mental thing where he's seen this before or something similar and how somebody handled it. He's trying to do the same thing and expect the same results, which isn't always how that works. And it's been 4 years of this, actually more than that. But I'm just saying, I feel like it's been the last 4 years, mainly with Ben retiring and moving on to other quarterbacks and not knowing who our quarterback is. At least when Ben was in there, it was Ben. Like, even when Ben was bad, there was still a floor to expect from him. The floor has dropped. The floor doesn't exist.
And let's be real, Ben was bad in both Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
His performance was bad in both of those, but they still won.
Better in the second than the first, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
One against Seattle was very, very bad. But yeah, I mean, and you know, those teams won on defense, which isn't different to what we're doing now. But that expectation of what the quarterback can do, because teams were afraid of Ben's arm. Genuinely. Teams aren't afraid of Pittsburgh's passing game right now.
No, there's no reason to be.
They're a little like, George might get us for a touchdown. Go put up 14 points, you'll beat us. Like, it's just crazy to me. I don't know. Sorry, little rant again.
Yeah, one last rant from me, and then we can move over to the defense.
Yay.
As this was likely Najee Harris's last game with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't see them bringing him back most likely. It reminded me of one of my biggest frustrations with his usage.
Mm-hmm.
In his rookie season, they threw it to him nonstop. His hands are tremendous. He's good after he catches the ball, especially when he has a little bit of open field. We saw that again in this game.
Yep.
3 catches for 41 yards. He had a screenplay that he took like 20 yards. Like, he has mobility and agility in the open field. As a receiver, he excels. And it's a shame to me that this team went so heavy with Jaylen Warren that they just completely stopped using him as a receiver for the most part, because you look at this game and he's the second most productive receiver.
Yep.
It's like, why can't we use this man at what he does best? He had like 70 receptions or something his rookie year. I remember that last game, he had like 13 catches. He got so tired of catching the ball because they just kept on dropping it off to him on every single play that he batted it down. Like, what are we doing here, man? Put people in their best position to win.
74 receptions for 467 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Which shows you they were all just dump offs and he was getting murdered over and over.
Yeah. I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns receiving his rookie year and his second year. The last 2 years, he has 0 receiving touchdowns.
Yep. Because all the passes were going to Jalen Warren, which is another disappointment from this year with 1 touchdown on the entire season.
Yep. I mean, let's say it the way it is. This entire year was a disappointment. I mean, Russell.
Not from everyone. I would say there were some nice surprises.
No, but as a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, as the organization, as the team, this year was a disappointment and a failure, like drastic. You got a couple small bright lights and things that you can look forward to in the future, but it's, in my opinion, those things are so small and some in such question that I don't think there's oh, I can't wait for next year. You know what I mean? Like, there's not enough hope in that this team can make the changes necessary. You had all year to make changes last year, and it took you to whatever point of making changes with Matt Canada. You had all the last 4 games of this year. I thought if this team was going to make a change or make a playoff run, it would have happened before that Cincy game. Like, hey, you had those 3 games in 10 or 11 days.
Yeah.
That's rough. That sucks. Didn't have a lot of time to do anything. I get it. We got to roll with what we're doing. And then to come out and do the same exact thing against the Bengals was very disheartening for me. So I'm not surprised that we got to watch the same exact style of football. And we went from what? 10-4. No, we were 10-3 and then dropped to 10-7. Dang. That's crazy.
Just a really disappointing way to end the season. Just really disappointing.
Yep. Let's talk defensive side of the ball. Defensive line specifically. Cameron Hayward had himself a pretty decent game, even though he was hurt 100% of it. 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He was definitely hurting, but he was getting involved. He was staying motivated. So that was a plus for him.
Yeah, I think effort from Cam Hayward and even execution was excellent. If you would have even had one other person on the defensive line coming anywhere near as close to his effort and execution, then you wouldn't have had 300 yards run against you.
Yeah.
But it's just such a huge drop off from his effort and abilities to the next guy, which to me is very clearly Keanu Benton. And I'm not calling Keanu Benton a scrub. I'm just saying there's a huge gap between the level of their play. And then there's just as big of a gap from Keanu Benton down to the next guy, which is probably Larry Ogunjobi, who wouldn't start on probably 28 teams in the NFL the way he's playing right now.
Oh, yeah. No way. Yeah.
Most teams at least have a 370-pound fat guy they can put out there to help stop the run. Our backup nose tackle looks like he's probably 290. Like,
You talk about Adams?
Yes. He's a backup nose tackle who isn't tall enough to be a D end and isn't stout enough to be a D tackle. And I guess the point of him is rushing the passer because he's not great against the run, but he isn't good rushing the passer. Yep. Kind of sums up Isaiah Loudermilk too. Same thing. Not great against the run, not great rushing the passer. Just doesn't really have anything that he's real good at. Just they have to get better on the defensive line. They have to invest in it again. Just all your draft picks have not panned out there. Other than Keanu Benton. Keanu Benton looks like he's going to be a solid player at the worst case scenario.
Yep.
But you have to hit on one. You can't keep on just swinging on these, 4th and 5th round guys and hoping that you're going to build on it. We saw that with the offensive line when all we were doing was drafting 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys and thinking we could build a good offensive line off of that. It didn't work.
Nope. Now you can hit a couple of those guys. Yeah.
What's that?
I said you can hit on a couple of those guys sometimes, but not often.
Yeah, and Mason McCormick looks like he might be one of those guys, right? He had some good moments throughout the course of this year. I'm kind of excited to see what he can do after a full off season of recovery and weightlifting once his hands healed up enough to do it again.
Yep.
But, yeah, there's no one behind Keanu Benton to develop. There isn't. I think this is it for Loudermilk. I think that was year 4. So I think he's a free agent. Actually, I have a list of the free agents, so I can check that and see.
Yeah.
I found one right before the show. So he's an unrestricted free agent. So he's gone too. We needed him or Leal to develop into a quality backup defensive lineman that could be a starter, and neither one of them did.
Yeah. Yep. It's very unfortunate. Very just another hit or another shot, another miss. It's fine. We'll move on from it. Hopefully do something better.
Middle linebackers, Cody. Let's go there before outside linebackers.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, a great game from Landon Roberts and Patrick Queen outside of not always filling the right hole, which sometimes Peyton Wilson was also a part of that. We'll talk about that. There was one play where he played the option play very well. TJ came down, committed to Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Peyton Wilson folded over and was right there to stop Lamar Jackson. Like, it was phenomenal play. And then it seems like we never played it that style again the entire game. I don't understand how that works. I don't understand why we're blitzing the A gaps with middle linebackers when they're running outside. Like, I don't understand what's happening.
I'll tell you one thing that frustrated me about the play that you described with Peyton Wilson cleaning it up on the outside is that you get Peyton Wilson one-on-one with Lamar Jackson, and he's tackling him and taking him to the ground, but multiple Steelers just stood there and watched while the two of them fought for yards.
Yep.
No one joined in to help. They're dang near the same size. Defenders are supposed to swarm to the ball and gang tackle, especially against a running quarterback who your best hope of him playing poorly is honestly beating him up within the guidelines of the rules, but you need to hit him every time that it's legal to do so. And in a situation like that, you should be pig piling on him and driving him backwards. And no one helped. And there was like 2 guys there. Dante Jackson was very guilty of this. Larry Ogunjobi was guilty of this. I saw it multiple times throughout the course of this game, and it was disgusting. It was like what we used to complain about with the running backs getting 2 or 3 guys tackling them and driving them backwards, and the lineman would just watch them get driven backwards without jumping in and helping. Now these young guys are jumping in and helping out in that situation, which is great on the offensive side. On the defensive side, are they really all just, well, go screw yourself? I ain't going to help you. I ain't jumping in.
Well, I feel like it's a mentality thing that's going on in the background that we don't know about. And even former NFL defensive end Chris Canty was on Monday was on ESPN's Unsportsmanlike show on ESPN Radio, and he was quoted saying, "I'm texting our buddy Willie Colon, former Steelers, on Saturday night." Canty said, and he's a former Pittsburgh Steeler, won a Super Bowl with them. I said at 9:43 p.m. I know quit when I see it. Looks like the boys in black and yellow are tapping out. That's what he said. It just felt like the Pittsburgh Steelers when Cam Hayward is tapping out of the game because he's dealing with something. Now he was evaluated for a head injury, but when you start seeing stuff like that, TJ Watt dealing with an arm or an elbow, for those guys that got a bank full of pride in a postseason game where it's win or go home, for that type of stuff to be happening, I got to question whether or not this team under Mike Tomlin is capable of going any further.
I would say taking a shot at those two is completely unwarranted.
No, but I think that speaks volumes to what you're talking about.
I mean, these guys were legitimately injured, and they were on the sideline getting taped back up and then went back in the second they could. So trying to call them out is a BS move in my part. But there are plenty of guys that can be called out from that game. I mean, TJ probably tore something in that elbow, had them tape it up and went back in. He didn't have his best game, but he didn't quit. Cam could barely walk off the field in the first half and came running out like there was nothing wrong in the second. He definitely took an injection to numb up that area so that he could actually play in the second half. full well knowing he could make the injury drastically worse and could possibly need surgery because of it. Looked like a groin injury to me, by the way he could barely even walk off the
That'd
field.
be what, 2 years in a row?
Yeah, he had 2 groin tears last year and was playing on it.
Yep.
And it looks to me like he probably injured that in the final game there. That being said, he'll be perfectly fine by the time the next year comes around. If it does even require surgery, if that even is what it is, they're never going to tell us because they don't have to now. But, yeah, there were too many other times where I saw people standing around. Elandon Roberts really racked up the tackles in this game, but multiple times I felt like his lack of speed was exposed and he got beat to the edge.
Yep.
On that one long touchdown run, he overran the whole thing and just abandoned his hole. If he stays in his home, Minka and Deshaun Elliott were outside ready to stop it if it kept on going outside, but he over pursued to cut back and he went in for an easy touchdown. Nobody ever touched him. And it was just because he didn't play his responsibility. In as much as it's difficult to look at it and say this man had 14 tackles and led the team, I think if you're going to over pursue and then you don't have enough agility to get back into your hole because that's where you are athletically in your career. If you don't have the speed to get to the edge against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, you're going to lose these games if he's your starting middle linebacker again.
Yeah.
He's not physically capable of doing what is necessary to win these games.
Yep.
You got to go in a direction.
You got to do something at that position for sure. I'm excited to see what the young guys can do because we have 2 good ones, right?
Yeah, we have 2 very fast, flowing
Athletic
linebackers. But the problem is, I think both Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson are not stack and shed guys, and that's an issue in a running conference.
Agreed.
You got to be able to stack the offensive linemen, get them off you, and go make the tackle.
If the Browns don't bring back Nick Chubb, I don't see them as a running offense. The Bengals at this point in my mind are not a running offense. It's just the powerhouse Baltimore Ravens that dual-headed threat. If Derrick Henry's back again next year and Lamar,
he will be.
Of course, yeah. I think he signed a 2 or 3 year deal if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be able to stop that. You have all season to figure this out. Now, I don't expect them to come out and run the same exact thing. Actually, I kind of do, because if we can't stop it, why would they change it?
Yeah, there's no reason for them to change it.
But they're going to have other things in their repertoire. They're going to be putting different looks and different things this offseason, getting ready for us to try to prepare for that. So I'm just very curious. James, I don't know if you saw this on ESPN. Reporter Brooke Pryor shared some thoughts, and I want to show you just what that was real quick about the Steelers game.
It has been a journey indeed. As Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor joining us, she has slept for several minutes following that game yesterday. Brooke, the Steelers, they were 10-3 before they dropped 5 straight to end their season. You, of course, were in the locker room after another playoff loss. What was the mood of the team after that game?
Gary, 3 weeks ago, I walked into the same locker room after the Steelers lost in a blowout to the Ravens in Week 16. That locker room was silent. It was tense. It felt like a funeral. Last night, though, it felt more like a last day of school after everyone bombed a final exam. There was some sense of relief that it was over. I walked in, I saw players kind of, dapping each other up, kind of the sense that, hey, this season is done. And talking with them, it felt like I was hearing a lot of the same things that we've heard throughout the 5-game losing streak that ended the season. They didn't have answers. They don't know what was next. That's above their pay grade. But tight end Pat Freiermuth said that he has the utmost belief in Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan. And I said, why do you have belief when the results haven't been there? And he said, well, as a person in this career, it's what you do. You have to have belief to have success. But right now, the Steelers haven't had that. And it's another frustrating postseason loss, but one that it feels like they accepted the fate of maybe all the way back in the first quarter.
Sure. Pittsburgh, like you were mentioning, that the players are saying,
just unfortunate that we're getting that mentality out of the locker room. Now, I do like Pat's response. I'm sad that Pat hasn't been spoken about more with saying that and having the faith that he does, because everyone's talking about the George Pickens response, which, still rightfully so. It calls for as much attention. But it's weird to feel like she went into those locker rooms both times and had the different experience.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of almost appropriate for it to feel like a last day of school, because if these guys are being real with each other and with themselves, you really shouldn't be too confident that anybody you're looking at in that locker room is going to be back next year. There's a large list of free agents and a large list of guys that you probably really like that just aren't good enough. And you're not going to sit there on a day that might be the last time you see your buddy and say, hey, man, you suck. I don't want to play with you no more. Sure. As a professional, you're not going to say that to the guy. You might have words with him throughout the season trying to motivate somebody to do better. Maybe you're giving them some pointers. But when the season's over and you got beat that badly and that poor of a performance, the last thing you really want to do is go be a jerk to everybody when you never know if you're going to be on the team with them again next year or even on another team. It might be a situation like the Sean Elliott and Patrick Queen where they both were Ravens a year ago and now they're both Steelers. So the last thing you want to do is burn bridges and be jumping down each other's throats when nothing productive will come of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think they should all expect a lot of turnover in this team. Offensively and defensively, there should be, I would say, probably a good 6 to 8 new starters next year combined between offense and defense if we expect this team to be better.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. You want to talk outside linebackers?
Yeah, we can talk about it briefly. We already mentioned that TJ really just didn't make much splash. He was definitely assigned with the mesh charge once again. That's how they decided to defend this specific offensive attack with the option. The mesh charge means that the free outside linebacker is to just bum rush the running back no matter what. And you hit the running back regardless of what's happening to take him out of the equation. He does that very well, but obviously Lamar read it every time and just hung on to it, and then no one cleaned up Lamar 9 times out of 10. So just unfortunate that the scheme meant that you got nothing out of TJ, and they didn't move him again. Like, he lined up in the same exact spot, very predictable, very easy to double team. What I understand is he only had 2 snaps in this entire game that were pass rushing snaps that were one-on-one with the tackle, and he beat him both times. Obviously, he didn't get a sack, but he beat him in the 2 one-on-one situations that he got. And all we're going to hear is about how Roger Rosengarten stoned TJ Watt. He didn't. He got 2 one-on-one opportunities and lost both of them. Every other time, TJ was either double-teamed or chipped or both.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm right there with you. I hope that they can do some changes or do something with him more next year because, quite frankly, he's tired of losing.
Yeah. And he's seeing that his career is starting to get to that point where maybe he's not going to be as elite as he was previously.
Yep.
And if the team doesn't get better around him, he may never get a playoff win.
Yep.
And that would be an absolute tragedy for a player that good to never experience that. On the opposite side, another good game from Alex Highsmith, I thought. Again, getting to the quarterback, again, getting a sack. I wish he would have been healthy all year long because I think that Alex would have probably been in that 15 to 16 sacks by the end of the season had he been healthy all year. And he might have actually been able to make a run at the Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yep. No, I agree. I don't think anyone on the Steelers is going to get it. It'll probably go to that Bengals defensive end more than likely in my.
He should get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they give it to Myles Garrett just because his name's Myles.
I'll throw up. I will never talk about the Browns again on this show. I will let you solo those shows. I will never be there. I will not be present.
I don't think for a second that he deserves it. I saw the second episode of Hard Knocks yesterday, and to hear him speak in front of his teammates about, well, whatever motivates you, self accolades or awards or trophies. Like, he's not a team guy at all.
No. Like,
Myles Garrett is a very selfish player, always has been, always will be. I don't want to see him do anything in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Let's look at the cornerback room. Joey Porter had a rough game, couple holding play, actually 2 holding penalties, if I'm not mistaken, from him. Both pretty bad. You're making a face.
Well, I just think that Joey Porter Jr. was the only bright spot in the cornerback room.
I agree 100%, and that's a problem when there's 2 holding penalties. Like, no, I'm right there with you. But I won't say he had a good game just because he had the best game at that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think he was bad in coverage, just he had a couple penalties.
Yeah.
As to where Dante Jackson was very bad in coverage, and so was Cam Sutton.
The touchdown to Rashad Bateman was, he was never even close. Never stood a chance.
Yeah.
So.
And all day long, like Cam Sutton couldn't keep up with Isaiah Likely. Like, where is he at speed-wise if he can't cover a tight end that's 50 pounds heavier than him? Like, enough is enough with both of these guys. There's no reason to bring back Dante Jackson or Cam Sutton. If you want the secondary to be good next year, it needs to be Beanie Bishop and Corey Trice and whoever you add in the draft.
Yep. Yeah, you got to do something different at that position. It's so funny, James. It is so funny that at one point in this season we were like, we have depth.
Yeah.
And little did we know we didn't have starters.
No, I think we did all along. We just refused to play them.
That's fair.
I think there's too much faith in a guy that's a veteran that's been around. Like, you want to make him know what he's supposed to do.
He was getting interceptions.
Yeah. But getting toasted nonstop. Like, Cam Sutton didn't even get interceptions this year. Why did they keep on marching him out there? Like, he was just getting smoked and stiff-armed to the ground. And, like, he didn't do anything good this whole season.
You want to know what the problem is? Do you want to know?
The coaches that put him on the field.
It's a loyalty problem. 100%. The coaches are too loyal to players that they like or that they've been around to do something different. And that needs you have to reward good play as much as you have consequences for bad play.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's talk special teams because let's go safety. Let's not forget. Minka had an okay game, 9 tackles. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, Deshaun was fine too. He had a pass breakup.
Yeah, that was probably the best pass breakup of the entire game.
Yeah.
Like, that was phenomenal. I liked watching that. Other than that, nothing too much rest on the defense to talk about. Special teams, Cordarrelle Patterson had 1 kick return, 26 yards.
Yeah.
Nothing big. Nothing big. Calvin Austin, 1 punt return for 14 yards. Nothing there. Chris Boswell, 2 for 2 on extra points. Boz for president. Corliss Waitman, 5 punts, 257 yards. All 5 inside the 20-yard line.
And a 51.4-yard average is actually a really good average. So at least we'll give Corliss Waitman credit. He finished up with a very strong performance.
Yeah. Yep. With that being said, that is going to almost wrap up the show. We got to talk injuries just for a minute. We obviously talked about the TJ Watt elbow injury. You also had the injury to Dan Moore and then Cam Hayward with a supposed head injury. I don't know if that was just cover up for more things or what. Sometimes the teams do that. They don't say everything, but whatever. So Cam Moore dealing with a head injury, Dan Moore dealing with some kind of injury that he didn't come back from, and TJ Watt with that left elbow, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Injury. So we'll hopefully get more updates for those guys. Those updates won't be on the next show, as the next show will be recorded fairly soon. But we are going to break down the season on our next show. Hopefully you guys can check that out. That's going to wrap up today's episode. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Don't forget the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Make James here very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.